Well, again, we told you that we'll be having some great interview, an interaction. It will be the first, really, a one-on-one interaction by the new Minister for Communication, Innovation and Digital Technology. We'll see how that goes with him. But before then, we have to tell you we have cash out. It goes with Shoko star 439#. This is what you need to do. Choose option 2 as many times as you can. And as you do that, please know that we have some great insight into all things that we have to do this morning. And so we'll do that. Choose option 2, increase the number of tickets, become part of all those who will become those lucky winners. But we also have to tell you why it is a beachcation this Easter holidays, and this is what you need to do, making sure that you create that unforgettable memories at the beach with your family, loved ones and friends by booking the special all-inclusive 3-night package from the 18th to the 31st of April 2025, starting from 6,800 Ghana cedis for a couple. Early bird discount also available. So all you need to do is to make sure that to enable you get that discount, you book and pay before the 10th of April 2025. Save 10% extra on the package. Other guests also will having free access to all in-house facilities, including the swimming pool, the gym, cinema, or with attached popcorn, board games, snookers, etc. You also get to enjoy free airport pickups from Takoradi on Friday, the 18th of April, 2025. Remember, for this, we have terms and conditions applying. There are a number of fun activities, which will include the live band, as well as the tour of the beautiful facility with an electric golf cart also available. In-house carnival will be put together. They have a plush playground all for kids as well. And then they also have the sip and paint games that they will be having, the bicycle rides, the quad rides, etc. You will be enjoying all this at the Maha Beach Resort. They also have a village. Jet skis are available. They have the banana boats all available for you as well. The party bus ride, the trip to that famous village right there in Ghana on Stilt, Nzulezu, and many more. Maha Beach Resort doesn't offer just accommodation. They're telling you that they also deliver experience. Maha Beach Resort is a one-stop holiday destination for all honeymoon, as well as private parties and corporate events. And then you can do the needful. Call them for those reservations now to avoid disappointment. And the line for you to call is 030-3977-773, or you can also call their mobile, 050-1570-684. You can also email them, very easy for you to do that, and that is sm@maharesort.com. Or you can also go to their website and then check them at Maha Beach Resort on social media. Well, some great people already saying that it's a birthday, etc. But we'll be doing that very soon. But I have the fresh minister, but he's been making a lot of comments on his official communication events as well as interactions and all that. Sam George is the Minister for Communications. He's also the Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram. So we all know him very much as well. Very popular figure, but that role also means that he's not somebody who is not accustomed to that communications role, has been playing that role, but he's here. Good morning to you and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Roland.
Yeah, first interaction having you one-on-one, and that's good. And you've been making a number of bars, razzmatazz, and inroads with 1 million coders program, etc. But for me, over the last couple of days, is that interaction you had with that 27-year-old great phone repairer, or I'll say rehabilitator in Kumasi. How come?
Okay, good morning to our viewers. Malfred came to my notice via social media. I mean, I saw the video the first time, didn't pay a lot of attention to it, honestly. And then I started getting the video sent to me by several senior people and regular Ghanaians saying, look, this is a great guy. So I took my time to watch it, and I was blown away. At the time, I was attending the AI Summit in Kigali, and so I reached out to my brother in Kumasi, Honorable Amakohini, the regional minister. I said to him, Frank, find me this guy. And so I think that was on Saturday.
Just the Saturday?
Yeah, last Saturday. Frank sent me his number, so I called him, spoke to him. I said to him, I'm back in Accra on Tuesday. Can I see you on Wednesday? And he said, oh, well, I would like to come. So I got my office to buy him a ticket. And he came down. We picked him up at the airport and he came to the office. And it was really amazing having a conversation with Malfred. He's called Lighter. You know, that's his street name. I hear, you know. Lighter. Yeah. And the first thing I asked, I said, are you a grown man or a kid? You know, because he looked very cute. I nearly wanted to pick him up, you know. I know. But for me, his modesty. Because as I kept talking about how wild the country has been by what he kept saying, oh, this is nothing. He didn't think it was any big deal. He didn't think that, he thought it was something small, you know, and he showed me some of the things he's done, which he's not yet put out, which he says he's going to put out very soon. And I think that he's a typical example of the talent and skill that we have in the country that needs acceleration, that needs support. And we're going to be doing a lot more of this, you know.
Because I was just about to ask you, that interaction you had really brought to the center all the promises that have been made about focusing on young people, the productive population of our country, and tying it to, you know, the new trends of AI, information technology, and the vision that seems to be in that, or those promises in the campaign. How does that fit in?
So I'll consider Malfred, and Malfred has on his own trained a number of people. In fact, after his meeting with me, his return ticket was later in the evening, and I asked him, what are you going to do? He said, oh, a number of my boys are in Accra. A number of my boys who I have trained are working in Accra, and I want to visit them. So we gave him a vehicle and a driver to take him around Accra to visit his boys. But that's on his own. Now, Malfred could be seen as a startup. And there's several fantastic ideas. And since then, I've gotten messages from people. There's someone from Somania who sent me a message and said, I can even do better than Malfred, you know, and all of that. But I think that that's where the innovation and startup bill, which my ministry is working on, is going to be very critical.
What's in the bill?
So the innovation and startup bill is actually looking at the startup ecosystem. And what we want to do is create a legal framework that takes you from startup, puts you in an innovation incubator where you can actually test and grow your innovation under the right regulatory framework. And then once that is matured, we're able to move you into what we call the accelerator. And then with the accelerator, we're talking about scalability, so that you realize that many fantastic innovators in Ghana are unable to do scale. They're unable to grow their businesses to the next level. They're unable to grow beyond a fantastic idea that a few people are using. People in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, in Nigeria need to have access to that. But there's scalability, and to get scalability, you need access to funds. So once we have the innovation and startup bill set up, and hopefully by the time Parliament resumes towards the end of May, I'll be in a position to lay that bill before Parliament and make sure it passes through Parliament before the next meeting of Parliament ends. We will have that in place. Now, tying the innovation and startup bill with the Mahama Manifesto promise in the Resetting Ghana Agenda Manifesto of 2024 of the FinTech Development Fund, the $50 million fund, which we will be running, my ministry will be running with the Bank of Ghana. We're going to be using those funds to offer business advisory support and help to do the scalability models under the accelerator program. So it's interesting times for young startups, for businesses that need to be scaled up. And that's why we're using Malfred as a test case. I've made an offer to him to run a model under the Ghana-India Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT, where we would have him as a master trainer. We would recruit people across the country, and then he will be able to train, and he'll also be able to make money out of it.
So great insight and technology transfer.
Absolutely.
Knowledge.
Yes.
Great. That will also then feed into the question about how that ties into the 1 million coders program, and how unraveling is that promise in terms of starting and then being implemented. Where have we got into? Well, where are we starting?
Well, the 1 million coders program has been touted as a visionary dream. Over the past 8 weeks, I've been at about 4 international fora where I have outlined Ghana's vision, tech vision, and at the core of it is making Ghana a hub for technology talent. And we're saying that we want to be a net exporter of technology talent in the region. And everywhere we've gone to and we've mentioned that we're doing 1 million coders, you see the room light up. Because the 1 million coders is actually what is going to position Ghana to tap into the $3 trillion BPO, KPO ecosystem. And so for us, this for me is a game changer. It's innovative, and it's imperative that we get it done. And for President Mahama, it's non-negotiable to get this off the road. And that's why it's one of his 26 social contract promises to complete in the first 120 days. And so we've been working around the clock to get this off the table.
So there's a secretariat, for example? Or
no, the ministry is running it. We're running it from the ministry. The lead agency on it is the Ghana India Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT, because that's literally, I consider them to be our research and development wing. Exactly. And so they've developed a curriculum for it. We're running with 6 pilot programs, but the programs are really going to be scaled up. We've received over 40 private sector partnership requests. And so there are going to be a number of private partnership verticals that are going to run. I don't want to go into mentioning names because there's a small team at the ministry that's reviewing all of the proposals. We're seeing how to integrate them. But clearly we're going to have a number of verticals. We're having conversations with the MasterCard Foundation. We're having conversations with with Google, for example, and Google Classroom. ALX has brought us a few things that we're going to do with them. And so there's several.
And all this just being put together and managed as one entity and then
under the 1 million coders, coders. So currently the website is active, 1millioncoders.gov.gh. The one is either number 1 or spelled out as ONE, whichever way you do it, it would take you to the link. In the first 14 hours after I announced it at my press conference, we had 7,342 applications.
Entries. Wow.
Applications. Meanwhile, we said we're going to start the launch with only 250 people. So the team is looking at how to immediately expand so that we can accommodate the interest. The interest is huge. And mind you, we're just operating in 4 regions for now and 1 center per region. But we're looking to, as quickly as possible, scale up to all the 16 regions. I tasked my GIFEC team, the Ghana Investment Fund for Electronic Communication, to immediately begin to give me an update on community information centers that we have across the country that we can quickly put to use so that over the next 4 to 6 weeks, we can roll out nationally, at least in a number of centers in every region. The plan, the mandate I've given to them is that in every region, I want to have at least 5 centers. But before end of year, you would have us having a center in every single district. In fact, some districts may have more than 1, depending on the population density and size of the district. The plan is to have at least 280 centers across the country that are going to be doing the training. It's a lot of heavy lifting, but the team is capable and competent, and we'll get it done.
Okay. Yeah. You have over 7,000 entries, etc.
Yeah.
But the target is to, by the close of the last year of the term, have 1 million.
We would exceed 1 million. Okay. You have my word on that. Right. We would exceed 1 million because there are few things we intend to do. You see, training and skilling in this manner is not meant for just young people. I hold the view that if you're a public servant today or a civil servant today, and you want to remain relevant going forward, you need to take some of these programs. You need to go. You need to go and enroll and do this program. We normally call it reskilling and upskilling. You know, you need to bear in mind that if you have a director of finance in a ministry today, you must bear in mind that you're going to be using AI tools to do your projection and your budgeting. And so everybody needs to learn something. If you're a science and maths teacher in the Ghana Education Service, you need to enroll and do this program. And I hold the view that every university student must enroll and do this program. And there are conversations along those lines. You know the way we used to do com skills? Every university student does com skills before you graduate. So we would cross the 1 million. I'm pretty confident about that. And the core thing here is that irrespective of what program you're doing, what model you're doing, whether you're doing training to become a cybersecurity analyst or a data forensic practitioner, everybody is going to do the introduction to coding. So coding is embedded in all the trainings, whether you're doing basic coding. We will have the specialized coding programs as well. But right now, even on the pilot programs, be it cybersecurity, be it data protection, web analytics, whatever, you will still do some basic coding.
Even before you hit the ground running at the ministry, you started this buzz, this direct criticism about the states of acquisition of AirtelTigo and etc., and that they have some liabilities that should be of concern to the ordinary Ghanaian. What really is your own finding based on the handing over notes you have at the ministry?
Well, like I said during my press engagement, I think that the acquisition of AirtelTigo by the former administration and minister was grossly irresponsible.
Grossly responsible?
Grossly responsible and an act of unpatriotism. If two private companies have mismanaged their business, failed to make investments in their business, the regulator had slept on their job to ensure that the right things were done, and those companies were about to fold. You don't tell the Ghanaian people that you bought the company for $1. Meanwhile, there's debt of $400 million sitting there, assets less than $50 million. So you basically bought a net equity of negative $350 million. And how anyone who loves this country and thinks about the children of this country and their future will take such a decision, for me, beggars belief. And I thought I was grossly irresponsible. There have been some debt restructuring arrangements that have gone on. It's dropped the debt to about $200 million. But on a monthly basis, the company is making losses of 20 million plus and some change, 20 million Ghana cedis and some change. So clearly, you have a situation that is getting worse by the day, and we need to triage it.
What's
we need
the plan
to stop
to
it.
revamp it?
Well,
because now a GOG asset.
Absolutely. I've written to the president seeking permission for some policy initiatives we want to take relative to that. I've been asked to present a memo to cabinet. I will send it to cabinet. Once I get cabinet approval, I'll be making the next steps relative to AT public.
Okay. So at the end of the day, it means that there will need to be some capital injection on AirtelTigo. What's the promise?
Without a doubt. I mean, as we speak right now, the core of the network and the billing platform are end of life. The core and billing platform are unable to support 4G. They're unable to do anything beyond 3G. It means that you need serious capital injection. We have a few proposals from private sector players who think that they're willing to get a stake in the business and do the requisite capital injection. Like I said, I'll be presenting all the offers to cabinet, and then cabinet will take a collective decision.
What numbers are you playing with? Are you simulating?
I don't want to go into those details.
No.
It's a business, and it's a business, and they've got competitors as well. So, as to the details of what we'll be putting in, because these are proposals that are still fluid. You still have a number of people bringing in proposals. I wouldn't want to go into the specific details of the proposals we've received.
What sort of irresponsibility then now, in terms of the decision making in the acquisition, led us to where we are today?
I'll be unable to explain what the thinking was by my predecessor to embark on this. I mean, there are speculations, but again, I don't want to get into speculation, but the attempt to get governments to absorb the debt and then whatever minimal assets existed, drop that into a new vehicle and commercialize that as private sector would have spoken or would lend to the suspicion of state capture by individuals. But again, like I said, I'll leave that for the Attorney General to have a look at and see if there's the need for anyone to answer questions on causing financial loss to the state.
At the end of the day, there are key things that need to be done quickly. One of the, it looks like, well, issues that had been raised in the public domain was that you went about the Ghana Digital Infrastructure Project, suspending, sacking people, etc., leading to gross decision taken by the funding agency, the World Bank, etc. What really is a matter of the story?
I mean, people can tickle themselves and laugh. But like, again, I said on Wednesday in my press conference, I took the action to terminate 13 of the 15 people on the project as an act of patriotism to this country. Again, on that one, like I said on Friday, there will be in my next, and I've pledged that as part of my commitment to transparency and accountable governance, every quarter I will brief the country on what my ministry has done. And I believe that by the time I'm doing my next brief at the end of Q2, the World Bank would have completed its investigations. The World Bank is investigating some of the people I terminated. Those investigations are ongoing. I don't want to prejudice those investigations, but I took those actions to signal to the international community that there's being a reset. There's a new sheriff in town who has zero tolerance for corruption and graft, and that we will not countenance, we will not accept, and we will not condone any action that tarnishes the good image of Ghana and the international community because of personal avarice or greed. But like I said, the details would shock you when we put them out, and in due course we will. But again, like I said, this is not about me. If the World Bank itself has had costs to carry out investigations, it should tell you that it's a serious matter. What sort of
suspicious actions that, or acts or omissions that were undertaken?
Roland, I plead with you not to push me into the details, because
prejudice
I want the World Bank to put out its findings, and then we'll speak to them.
And then know you. If there's one thing that will inform the decision to take us through trouble of re-registering our SIM cards, what would it be? Why are you intending to take us through this trouble? Because we had an earlier one. We went to queue, and particularly myself and the rest of the team here, we went to LWAC because that was we'll queue for hours, report on it on the subject. And then here we are again. You come in as a new minister and you want us to go re-register. Why, Sam George?
Okay. The completion of this program will make it clear as the difference between day and night, the difference between the Mahama administration and the Akufo-Addo government.
What's the difference in relation to this?
Again, the previous administration's SIM re-registration was a poorly thought through initiative, lacking technology, lacking innovation. It was basically, again, an attempt to force through private interest over public interest. Now, I make the point very clear that what we're doing is not a re-registration. You can only re-register something that has already been registered.
I don't understand.
If you're doing a re-registration, it means something's been registered and you want to re-register it again. So you're trying to register something that's been registered already.
That is what we did.
Nothing's been registered.
We took our Ghana card, we queued for hours, they even took our bio data.
Roland, and all of that was an abuse of public office.
Explain to me.
There was absolutely no verification of your data that was taken. And look, if you remember, Roland, I sat in this studio as deputy ranking member on the select committee and raised issues. In fact, I was then nicknamed Stubborn Academy, simply because I kept saying, look, we shouldn't go through this mess. And like I keep saying, Roland, we will do the registration, not re-registration. We're coming to do a proper registration. It's going to be backed by law. Before I do it again, I will go to Parliament to get an LI that would enable me do what I'm going to do. Don't forget, it was one of the things I said, that my predecessor had no legal basis to do what she did because there was no LI to do a re-registration. The only LI we have today was the LI in 2010 that Haruna Idrisu did when he tried to do the first registration. At that time, when Haruna tried to do the first registration, you did not have a single source of truth like you have today with the NIA database. So when Haruna did the first SIM registration, people went with passports, people went with driver's license, people went with all kinds of cards. And there was no way to verify all of those cards.
And the second one went with the Ghana card?
The second one, which Ursula Owusu attempted to do or said she did, was supposed to be using one single source of truth, the Ghana card. Now, I'll be grateful if you could call her and ask her, or call the networks and ask the networks, if they verified the Ghana cards that you sent against the NIA database. No. No such verification was done. So yes, you went with your Ghana card. Everybody was asked to come there with a Ghana card. But you go there with your Ghana card not because they want to look at your handsome or beautiful face on the Ghana card. It's because they want to match the biometric details that the Ghana card is carrying and holding on the NIA database. And then they cross-reference that with the new biometrics you're submitting. That's the technology behind it.
I don't understand. You mean none of this was done?
There was absolutely no queries done. And so basically, it was a waste. That's why I said it was an act of pure wickedness and insensitivity.
So where is our data?
You need to ask my predecessor and those who run it. But that's why I'm saying, look, this is going to settle the matter. Roland, what we're doing now is to pick whatever data sits there that was not cross-referenced and do the matching. And that's why I said the registration we're going to do is going to be tech-driven, but human-centered. I don't expect to see you queue. I don't expect to see any Ghanaian queue. And you have my word for it. Nobody's going to queue. You're not going to have to go to LWAC, especially if your data matches. Because, look, it's a very simple flow we're doing. So Roland's number is 0244 555 666. Now, when Roland registered for his NIA card, he was asked to submit the numbers he has. You remember? When you registered for your Ghana card. And so the NIA has your number, 0244 555 666, linked with your Ghana card. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to pick the biometrics that you supposedly submitted, if it's still there, and run it through the database to see if it matches what you submitted to the NIA. If it does match, the next thing is your first name and last name and middle name matching? Yes. If it then does that, you get a notification saying that you've been verified and authenticated. If there is a disparity anywhere, it sends you a prompt and allows you to go online in the comfort of your home to deliver your biometrics.
Pure online.
Liveliness
Have you then spoken to the management of the NIA?
I've spoken with the minister. The minister is fully aware of what we're doing. We have a meeting, I think, on Monday with the NIA Director General, because first and foremost, the ministry through the NCA and its technical partners have to build our platform. And then once we are done testing our platform, we can then go and do the integration with the NIA. So now we're about 98% done with our platform. And so Monday, I have a meeting with the Interior Minister and NIA to begin the conversations on integration. But we've done our simulations already. We'll do the integrations of the platforms, do further test run, then do a proper media sensitization. Because Roland, if your data does not sync, then it means that you either have to go online to the app and use and do the liveliness verification on your own. If that does not work, you then have to go to a shop to get it done. But you're not just going to wake up and have 1,000 people show up at the shop. You see the way you don't just show up at the passport office. You have to book an appointment.
Do an application online before you go for data.
It's the same way if there is an issue that you need to show up at a shop, you will book an appointment with the nearest shop to you. So if you're with Network A and you work in Asylum Down and they have a shop in Asylum Down, you will book an appointment and go there at that time so that you don't have a crowd gathering there. Roland, I am not here to punish Ghanaians. I'm here to make their life better. Because, you know, and people don't understand this until it hits close to home. In the first 2 weeks of my being in office, we had a situation where we needed to identify an individual on the back of the Ghana card that was used to register a SIM, because there was a SIM-related criminal offense. And when we used technology and security to identify the individual and pick up the individual, within the first 10 minutes, it became clear that the person whose Ghana card the person who had been picked on the basis of his Ghana card was not the person who was holding the SIM card. His Ghana card had been used to register a SIM card fraudulently. And that's what happened during that period. Because there was no cross-referencing and matching, that's why people's Ghana cards were used to illegally register SIM cards that they are not aware of. I'm sure you've seen the Facebook complaints during the SIM registration of people saying that I'm noticing that I went to check and I
multiple,
realized that multiple numbers I don't know are linked to my Ghana card. Because, you know, unscrupulous elements who realized the lack in technological wisdom, for want of a better phrase, in what was done, realized that there was no real-time matching, there was no cross-referencing. So what they did was they started pre-registering SIMs for fraud. And so you go to a place, the agent takes your card, your Ghana card, takes a picture, does the scanning, you submit your biometrics, says, oh, I'm registering, says, oh, the network didn't go through, I need to do it again. Meanwhile, a SIM has been registered. So it's all of those we need to clean. We need to clean up the system.
So it's not double activity we're about doing?
Not at all.
Okay. How much are we spending on this?
Well, it's not going to come at cost to the Ghanaian public.
I don't understand.
The networks are going to pay for it. I've made it clear to them they will pay for it.
They told you that? They've given you those assurances?
Well, I've spoken to them and assured and made them see reason why they need to pay for it. Because you see, if they are not able, if we don't do this, and I begin to clamp down using the regulator on the networks to identify the persons who are using their SIM cards for fraud, per the law, I'm at liberty to impose a fine of $1,000 per SIM fraud.
This is something. Are you threatening the network operators?
I'm enforcing the law. There must be discipline. The law must work. But you see, again, I'm not going to be arbitrary. And that's why I'm working with the network operators to clean up the system. We need to help the network operators clean up the system. If we help them clean up the system, they won't be at risk of a challenge to their networks. You understand me? And whilst the ministry failed previously to work on integration, the networks went behind the ministry and started doing integration with the NIA database. We need to have a centralized arrangement.
Okay.
And so the networks are very awake and alive to the fact that this is in their benefit. It's to their benefit. It's in their interest. And so we will work with them to make this work for the Ghanaian people.
I asked the question, the data that was collected in the recent exercise.
Yes.
Where is it? You haven't answered it.
Well, there's still an audit going on to determine what happened to that, because again...
you mean as an oversight minister, you don't know where the data is, whether it's with NCA?
Well, there was nothing in the handing over. Nothing was given to the NCA. So multiple apps were created that were supposed to be collecting people's data. We need to find out where that data is sitting and all of that. The networks...
Are you being for real?
I'm telling you, yes. There was nothing in the handing over notes about that. That's why I said
to you, asked the relevant sub-sector agencies?
And that's what I'm saying to you, that the NCA did not hold the data. The NCA is supposed to be the regulator. So where is that data,
Sam George?
We should be asking the former minister.
So what will you do about it?
Well, the state will act on it.
I see. Sam George, this is worrying, is it not?
Absolutely, because this is the ministry that oversees the Data Protection Commission.
Right.
And data protection should have been a principal consideration. And these were things I raised as deputy ranking member on the Parliamentary Oversight Committee, but nobody listened at the time. But we'll fix all of those problems.
Okay. The key consideration for this interview was also me asking a number of operators who perform activities or services for the sector, the telecom sector. And they say that your ministry is supervising perhaps a regime where the operators, their expected scale-up or expansion efforts, as they promise, your ministry, is not being undertaken. As a result of that, we have some entities that have more monopoly than others. Indeed, the former minister, Eslo, also had constantly raised issues about perceived monopoly by certain entities, etc. How are you addressing that?
Well, again, that's you're talking about the SMP issue. I think that the SMP is a administrative tool in the law at the disposal of the minister. But again, a gun in the hand of a trained soldier is a fantastic weapon of protection for the general public. Put that same gun in the hand of a monkey, and it becomes a threat to the society because the monkey has no understanding of how to use the weapon. And so you have a minister who had the SMP tool, deployed it at a time when an operator was about 62% of the market. It was supposed to control the growth and create a certain balance in the market. But after she deployed the SMP, that operator is now 74% of the market. So you realize that the SMP tool, even though a good tool, was applied wrongly. and has created even further distortion in the market. That operator has moved from 62% to about 74%. So clearly, like the analogy I gave to you, the weapon was put in the hands of the wrong person.
What do you intend doing about it?
We need to deal with it and fix it. But first and foremost, you need to realize that there's an issue of quality of service. Now, that operator is a super significant market player. The network is deeply challenged. A lot of people, everybody's complaining about call drops and failure. And so I authorized tech neutrality for them to allow them refarm some of the spectrum to improve the quality of service. I've also given them additional spectrum blocks. I've made an offer to the other network operators because, you see, you don't just impose the SMP as a tool on one end. What you do is you then compel the other players to make the critical investments in their network to build up their network. But if you impose the SMP tool and the other players are not doing the critical investment that's needed, it's two sides to a coin. If you don't do the investment on the other side, you still cannot rein in the significant market player. And so we're going to use a number of policy tools to rein them in going forward.
You raise fire and brimstone on a contract for whether it's the implementation or management of 5G on this network, the other set. What's the state now? 5G.
Well, I've met the entity behind it, NGIC. I met them and their partners at the Mobile World Conference in Barcelona. I asked them specifically, I said to them, you cannot hold the country to ransom. You launched 5G. You told us you launched on the 1st of November last year with a former minister. We're yet to see any 5G signals anywhere in the country. They gave me assurances that by the end of May, they will be good to go. I met them about 3 weeks ago in my office. They asked for a June deadline. I'm obliged to move it by 1 month. If by June I don't see the 5G sites, we'll have a conversation with the regulator and the entity.
No, Sam, you were shouting, it is illegal, you can't put in the hands of one operator a 5G.
There is a contract that's been signed. I'm not going to act arbitrarily. I would respect contracts. But that's what I'm saying, that I have committed them to a timeline to deliver. Now, when you fail to meet your obligations, and again, let me be very clear, the issues with the contract that was signed, the terms of the license, not necessarily a contract, the assignment of the license, the issues with it. But the law allows us to relook at the grant of a license. But that's what I'm saying, that I don't want it to look as though there is malice aforethought. And that's why I have been patient enough to allow the May deadline. Now the May deadline has moved to June. And I'm saying that if by 1st of July, and Roland, thankfully, June will end Q2. So in July, I will be addressing the country again. If by end, no, well, I'll be doing my quarterly brief, like I did last Wednesday, at the end of June. So in the first week of July, I'll brief the country on my sector again. And I'm sure that the NGIC 5G issue would be a critical one with the next steps, either announcing that we have gone live, or announce in respect of the contract, or announcing that they have not been able to meet the deadlines that they set and what the steps will be taken next are. For now, I want to give them all the support and I respect the contract and urge them to meet their own timeline that they've asked for of June.
Okay. Now let's ask some customer service questions from some of our viewers. People are worried. Data is very expensive, yet data is not the resource we use for everything in life. What so far have you found out? What's the level of engagement with the operators, and how willing are they to come to the table to heed the concerns of customers?
So I set up a data pricing committee and give them 14 days to come to me with a roadmap for implementation. And in 13 days, they submitted their report. It was stakeholders, MNOs, the regulator. And so we had that engagement. They submitted their report to me. The report had short-term, medium-term, and long-term policy reforms that had to be done. I referred it to the regulator. The regulator has gone on to meet with the MNOs on it. I've met with the MNO CEOs myself on the on the framework that's been given. I mean, people expect that I will just set the prices for data. That's impossible. I can't just set the prices for data, but what I can do is use policy. And so, for example, with some of the things that I've done relative to spectrum allocations and tech neutrality, I've used those to negotiate with players in the industry and said, I need you to do a certain package, for example, for students. I want to have a specific bundle for students in the country that is cheaper per megabyte than the regular data bundle that you offer. Again, I've said to them that for those who are content creators, those who work in the gig economy, we also want to have specialized data bundles for them, which are cheaper. And so these are all engagements that are ongoing. The regulator is finalizing the technical modalities to have these various pricing models, and then we'll put them out. But I think that in the long term, or medium to long term, what we really need to do is two things. Have a lot more bandwidth capacity coming into the country. And for me, I've already commenced conversations with Equiano. The Equiano cable belongs to Google. The capacity on Equiano is massive.
Yeah, data service.
Yeah, it's a subsea cable, and it carries bandwidth. And because it's new technology, it carries a heavy level of bandwidth. Again, a failing of the previous administration. Google wanted to land in Ghana. Google came to Ghana. The NCA at the time gave the license to a company, but for whatever personal reasons of persons in the ministry, they weren't happy with who got the license, and there was all kinds of rancor. And so Google decided to leave Ghana and go and land that cable in Togo.
So the cable is...
The cable is in Togo. And it's going to cost us about $50 million to reroute and do a patch landing here in Accra. I had conversations with some executives from Google on that level, and we're extending that conversation to see that when Google does the phase 2 landings of Equiano, Ghana will be part of it. That will bring in more bandwidth, and the more, you see, it's a demand and supply thing. The more bandwidth you have in the country, the more the prices can be driven down because there's cheaper bandwidth that's coming in. But then another thing we need to do, which is a conversation I'm having with my brother John Jinapo, and we'll be having with PURC, is to have a certain level of what we call a tariff for the telecom sector, called the telecom tariff. Because electricity is one of the critical elements in the pricing of telecom services. You have mining tariffs. You have industrial tariff, but nobody's looking at the telecom sector and the amount of power that is consumed and why we should have a telecom tariff which should be lower. And once that is achieved, there will be a knock-on effect. Again, I'm hopeful that the finance minister will do a rationalization of the VAT. If that is done, and we look at some instances of double taxation in the price and cost build-up for data and voice calls in the country, you will definitely see a pass-through effect on the cost of data in the country. So these are medium-term, sometime end of the next year issues, but we are expecting to see a few things drop. But then the good thing is that you remember on Independence Day we announced an Independence Day bundle that was across all the networks, cheaper than the regular thing. I've gotten the MNOs to agree that we will have that 5 times a year. So now we're going to have those specialized cheaper data bundles on Independence Day, on May Day, on Republic Day, on Workers' Day, on Farmers' Day, and Founders' Day. Okay. Those are the 5 national holidays. So Independence Day, Workers' Day in celebration of our workers, Republic Day in recognition of our Republican status, Founders' Day in recognition of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who is the founder of Ghana, and then the Farmers' Day in recognition of our farmers of our country. You didn't do Teachers' Day. Didn't do Teachers' Day. It's very important. Teachers are workers, and so they're covered under Workers' Day. Fantastic. Fantastic response. But now let's come to some other issues. For example, in the sector we work in, we know, and indeed the former minister, Eslo, also had been constantly raising issues. People, entities, or firms have DTT channels in their name, yet not being utilized. What do you intend doing about it? I announced a spectrum audit as one of the first things. I think in the first week or 2 of being in the office, I instructed the NCA to do a spectrum audit. And already a number of people who have radio channels that Again, don't forget, when you're giving the frequency authorization, it's for 5 years. But the authorization is clear that you must go operational and live in 2 years. Some people have had their frequency authorizations for more than 2 years and they've not gone live. We're terminating and revoking all of those. If you've had the frequency for more than 2 years and you've not gone live, well, consider it that you've lost it, because we're retrieving all of that. You can't hold state assets in abeyance, because the terms are clear in the regulations. As we give you the frequency authorization, you're told to go live in 2 years, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. We're terminating them, and we'll make them available to people who are willing to go live and respect the terms of the frequency authorizations. There are those whose frequency authorizations have expired. If your frequency authorization has expired, you cannot do a renewal. You can only apply for a fresh frequency, because the Justice Databan ruling in the Radio Gold case was very clear that you cannot renew a license that has lapsed. And again, be mindful that you're supposed to indicate your intention to renew 90 days before the expiration of it. You fail to do that, your license will lapse, we will revoke it. There are a few that I have already suspended, not revoked, because of administrative lapses. Because there's a difference between suspending the license authorization and revoking the license authorization. In the case of Guma FM, the radio station in Boko, I've revoked their license.
Why?
They don't have a license. On national security considerations, their license has been revoked. They can't come back on air.
Which in the law you have the right to.
Yes, and so we instructed the NTA to do that revocation. The other 6 were suspensions, because they have certain documentation which they ought to have submitted, which they have not submitted. So I haven't revoked those licenses. We've instructed the NTA to suspend those licenses. There's a time frame. If they do not comply to provide all the necessary documentation within the time frame, then they would lose their licenses. And so we need to have discipline, because, I mean, if Media House A is making sure that they comply with all the documentation, meeting all the obligations of their frequency authorization, and Media House B chooses and negligently allows their frequency to lapse, you cannot say because of the freedom of expression and freedom of the media, we should not, then there's no need for us to have the law. Then nobody should comply with the law. So for us, we would apply the law not arbitrarily, free, fair, in a uniform manner. I don't care whose media house, who owns the media house, or who doesn't own the media house. If they meet the terms for the renewal of their license, I will renew the license. If they do not meet the terms, well, they will lose their license.
Closely related to that, it's something yourself, all of us do suffer from. It's the production, rebroadcast, republishing of content or news or information, of course, carried on social media or using the internet. And we know it's fake news. You even suffered it in Parliament. We had a poster on our channel or our social media platforms across all the subsidiaries. It was replaced with a porn picture. And of course, we had even subsequently had to issue a disclaimer, etc. You even did that, etc. How do we clamp down on hate speech, fake news, and all that?
Again, once Parliament...
especially it's on the internet.
Especially once Parliament gets back, we would be laying before Parliament. I mean, work is almost done on that bill, a bill on misinformation and disinformation. I am fully respectful of the rights and the freedoms of expression. However, I'm also mindful of the civic duty citizens have to ensure that they enjoy their rights without infringing on the rights of another. And so public safety is a major consideration for me, and we would lay this bill on misinformation and disinformation. As we speak, I have designated a team within my cybersecurity authority to focus on building digital dossiers of particular accounts and individuals who have decided to become purveyors of mis and disinformation. We're building the dossiers. We do not want to go to court or start any law enforcement action without having solid basis in law. And so, like I keep saying, be mindful what you post. And I'm not saying we're not interested, and the law will be very clear. And that's why I'm bringing it to Parliament, for Parliament to debate it and accept it and pass it. This is not a law that's going to be looking at criticism. No. I don't care how scathing the criticism is. It's a freedom of expression. But when it moves from criticism and then moves into pure disinformation, pure misinformation, peddling of fake news, altering of data and putting it out, clearly that's not a freedom. That's an abuse of a platform. And the law would work and clamp down on it. So the day, the night is almost over. Dawn is about to break. We will enforce the law firmly and rigorously on anyone who is engaged in fake news, irrespective of your political color. Let me be quick to announce that. Irrespective of your political color, if you engage in misinformation or disinformation and the peddling of fake news, the law will deal with you.
All right. What's the very issue on Kelni GVG terminations and all those subjects that reared its head?
Well, I've referred the contract to the Attorney General.
What's wrong with the contract?
Well, I mean, Roland, we've had this conversation for almost 8 years now. Everybody, I mean, Franklin Kudjo has waxed lyrical on this, so I won't even bother to go in there. I have referred it to the Attorney General to advise me on what I can do in the interim, the remaining 2 years of the contract. Study the contract, study the performance, advise me on what to do. However, I am clear that once that contract lapses, because, I mean, it was a 5-year contract, it was renewed by the former minister for another 5 years, and so there's supposed to be another renewal. I have made it clear I am not interested in renewing. I will not renew. I would, depending on what the Attorney General brings, I know that going beyond the terminal date of the contract as it sits, I will not be renewing Kelni GVG.
Not even if you're convinced by the operators?
Nothing will change my mind on that.
Why should we take, importantly, the issue of common monitoring platform as well as related issues on revenue assurance?
It's important because, I mean, it's revenue to the state. And I believe that the NCA should have built enough capacity because, I mean, this started first with GVG. Under Honorable Haruna, there was GVG. Then from there, under Honorable Omani's time, you had Suba. And then from there, Esla brought in Kelni GVG. I mean, the NCA should learn. The staff there are paid a salary. They should be able to do this from the salaries we pay them. You know, so I think that I don't want to continue the cycle of just signing contracts of that kind and nature. I believe that the NCA should build capacity and be in a position to do its own revenue assurance as a regulator so that all of that money sits with the state. It sits with the NCA to do what it can do. If there's the need for some technical support at some stage, we can look at it, but not for a service provider to come and offer the service. No, the NCA will do the service. If they need some technical support, we'll consider that as and when necessary.
You don't think any higher up call will make you change your mind?
I believe that the only higher up call will be from His Excellency President Mahama. President Mahama is committed to protecting the public purse. My actions are in line with protecting the public purse.
All right. If there are top 3 or top 5, let's stick to top 5 priorities now for you as a minister in your first year, what would they be as we wind up this conversation?
The full implementation of 1 million coders, the review of all the legislation in the ministry because the legislation there is outdated, my data exchange hub, making sure that I break down data silos and have that data repository. I'm looking to have what we call the SIM registration, get the SIM registration off the ground and have it working fully. And the SIM registration is not just SIM registration, but SIM registration and Central Equipment Identity Register, so together as one. And then the 5th thing for me will be to position Ghana as an AI hub with setting agreements that we are about to sign. when we sign, I'll announce them. This afternoon, I have a meeting on one of those. There are landmark agreements that are bringing investments in excess of $1 billion, private sector investment, not as loans, private sector investment into the country. I made a pitch to a very powerful nation, and they have responded favorably. I'm meeting with the ambassador this afternoon. I've received the initial response, and so we're working on the MOU. Once that is finalized, we'll put it out. But for me, if we do that, it's a legacy of President Mahama that we were able to attract that kind of investment into Africa, because that country is looking to make Ghana its West African hub. Bring in all the investment, set it up here, and that country has done it over the last 20, 30 years. We've seen them exponentially grow their presence in tech. They're going to fund it, put it in here, and then use it as their footprint on the African continent. So those 5 things for me are critical.
Okay. Over 3 trillion sits or circulates by way of transactions on mobile money. And we know it's big business. It's big liquidity.
Yes.
Okay. The big conversation that we've always had over the last, I believe, 2 years has been, why not see where you can get revenue out of it? Because the thorny issue has been why e-levy was implemented. What can we do about 3 trillion growing on electronic platforms by way of transactions?
There are very innovative ways about going about it that looks at...
What's your thinking around it?
Well, these are policy issues. I've had conversations with the Bank of Ghana. Again, the mobile money operators do not necessarily come directly under my regulation. They come under the regulation of the Bank of Ghana. But because now we have a mandate on digital technology, and mobile money is also digital technology, we're interfacing with the Bank of Ghana on that. But there are innovative ways to tap into that market without necessarily affecting the cost of the service to the user. Because this whole ecosystem is meant to drive financial inclusivity. And to drive financial inclusivity, you want to lower the bar for entry. You want to make it as cheap or close to free as possible for me to use a digital platform. If I have to spend more using a digital platform against fiscal cash, it's a disincentive for me to go digital. And so we'll look the policy planks that we're discussing with the Bank of Ghana. But since it's their area of regulation, I'll leave that for them to lead on the announcement. Okay,
there's Harry Akwete, who is watching us currently and says he stays in your constituency. And so I should ask you this question. As you're busily managing your new office and going about the meetings, etc., how would they get your assurance that you will not forget them in the constituency by your role as MP?
Well, I'm working in the constituency. I was in the constituency during the last holiday, and my team, I'm grateful to God for the team that I have. Team Jata is a fantastic team. My constituency chairman does a lot of work for me as well on the ground. As we speak, there's been challenges of water. We got Ghana Water to intervene. But in the interim, we've done over 60 tankers of water to various communities. Even last weekend, some of the villages, Some, Pantrendo, far off places where water is not getting to, we're still delivering water. For over the last 6 weeks, I have been constantly sending water for free to the constituents. Those who use the main road, the Aflao road, would realize that some work has already started again, because even though I am at the ministry, I've made an appeal to His Excellency the President, and it's something I campaigned on. I said that the road is not going to be constructed by me, but I am sure that if I make an appeal to the President, he's a listening President. True to his reputation, when I made an appeal to President Mahama about the struggle my constituents face on the stretch from Central University to Tema interchange, he's given an instruction to the roads minister, and you realize that work has started. The traffic has started to ease up, and the contractor's been asked to come back on the road. Again, I've spoken to the president about the Dowenya to Afienya to Dodowa stretch. Again, the president has given the roads minister the green light to work on that road. So these are critical things that are going on that we're working on. I'm hopeful that in the next few days, I'll get an MC nominated. We will get him approved. And then working with the MC and Assembly, we'll do a lot more. So the constituency is constantly on my radar. Okay. It's not something because I keep saying that first and foremost, I'm MP before minister. My MP role is assured for 4 years.
Ejina Kwesi from KMTV says that, are you aware that digital TV platforms in the Bono, Ahafo, and Bono East regions managed by KNet have been off for almost a year now due to unpaid electricity bills?
Yes. And that's simply because the ministry owes KNet almost $31 million.
$31 million?
You know, and it's something I'm committed to resolving. I've indicated that hopefully by the end of the next quarter, by the end of June, we would figure a way around it with KNet, even if it means doing some bridge financing to make sure that those sites come back on.
Okay. Andy says that there are television stations promoting money rituals and the likes.
Yes, I have reaching this week. I have reaching to the National Media Commission. It doesn't fall. Content doesn't fall under my purview. It falls under the purview of the National Media Commission. But again, we've made it clear that if the National Media Commission does not take action quickly, as a regulator of the spectrum, and that is being used to broadcast, we will withdraw that from those stations. And look, let's be clear. Like I said at my press briefing, I will protect the innocence of Ghanaian children over any business interest. I don't care whose ox is God. If you're showing money rituals, if you're showing all kinds of unwholesome content, if the NMC does not act, I don't care being called Idi Amin as I was called by the majority, the micro minority in Parliament the other day when I shut down a few radio stations over irregularities. They called me all kinds of names. I will protect the innocence of Ghanaian children, irrespective of whose ox is God. Okay. And so be careful. If you're a media house and you're showing unwholesome content, pornographic content, money rituals, you know, all kinds of occultic things, they are not allowed on our national airwaves. And even the timings with which they show these things, we'll clamp down and clamp down heavy.
Well, we're winding up, so that'll be it. We know we've had entry of Starlink into the market since the last year. I know, based on my interaction with industry players, that their allocation for, is it Greater Accra, for example, has been exhausted, etc. Have you, since you've been doing your policy travels, interacted with the company in itself as they're doing the deployment?
I've asked the regulator to inform the company that they need to open an office in Accra.
I don't understand.
They need to have an office. They need to have. You can't operate in our country and not have presence here. I mean, I thought that the decision to even give the license without making sure that they are resident in the country was poorly thought through.
The decision to give them the license to operate,
yes,
while not resident here. Because
today, if there's a problem involving a client of Starlink, and the regulator needs to speak with Starlink, we need to send an email to someone sitting somewhere in the US, and it will take them 2 to 3 weeks to come down. What kind of regulation is that? All the other players in the industry, in the country, are resident here. When I need to meet the CEO of any MNO, I can call, and in an hour he's sitting in my office or at the office of the regulator for me to protect the interest of the Ghanaian people. Why should I have to send an email to somebody who is offering services in my country and they will schedule a time in 2 or 3 weeks before they come? And it's a cause of concern not just here in Ghana. Across the sub-region, most of the ICT ministers are worried about it.
Your colleagues?
Yes, and we're going to be taking collective action.
The West African sub-region?
Yes.
On Starlink?
Absolutely. They must show physical presence in our countries.
Which timelines are you giving them?
You'll be hearing from us soon.
You and who?
Ministers across the sub-region. It's not going to be one country acting. It's going to be a block action.
Over the period, you've been waxing lyrical about how we need to make sure that other credible, more reliable payment platforms like PayPal, eBay, etc. come to Ghana. But since you're a minister, you haven't spoken about it.
Because there's there's a lot. Chief, I've been minister 8 weeks. I fixed 8 years of mismanagement and poor administration in 8 weeks.
So what efforts are you doing?
We've engaged PayPal. We're showing them, and that's part of the reason why we need to complete the SIM registration. Because then you show them that every mobile device and the centralized equipment identity register, you're taking all the regulatory and policy things that they need to whitelist the country. You have all of that in place. You've got your data exchange hubs. You've got all the things that they need to give them the assurance that the platform is not going to be used for money laundering here. We've engaged them, And I'm confident that in the shortest time we'll be whitelisted, especially on PayPal. PayPal is prime on my agenda. I met with the vice president of Facebook for the West Africa region, fine Ghanaian gentleman, Kojo. We had conversations about even the monetization of the platform here. The fact that at times you have to go through a third party to get monetized and all. And so there's a lot of work we're doing in that direction. But like I said, it's just 8 weeks. I know people think that there's a lot that has happened in 8 weeks. And so people think that I'm just been minister for 2 years. No, it's just 8 weeks.
It looks like you've been around for some time. Sorry for asking you that question. But the last one. This one is coming from Kofi Philip Abuchi, who says that I should ask you about scam calls, fraud. Have you received any as a minister before? Oh, yes. And those calls keep coming. I mean, people that I know have been defrauded. But that's why we need to do the SIM reg. Because when you even report the number, they are unable to identify who it is. Because at times you realize that the SIM was pre-registered. And so you're unable to identify who is actually holding the SIM. But if we do the SIM reg, if we do the device identity register, if we are unable to identify who the person is, we can block the phones. Mr. Samja, this is the same narrative that Eslausu told us. On? Yeah, he said scammers will go, and you are regurgitating same as being the reason why we need to register. With the greatest level yet we haven't cured with the greatest humility. I am not Eslausu. Right. I am Sam George. Thank you for passing through the studio, Sam George. Thank you. And that's the Minister for Communications. What's the full ministry name again? Communication, not communications. There's no S. There's government communications, which is run by my brother Felix. My ministry is Ministry of Communication, Digital Technology, and Innovations. So communication, your telecom sector, digital tech, fintech, agri-tech, edutech, all the techs, innovation, artificial intelligence and emerging technologies. Yeah. Kwejo Bonsu says he was fighting for LGBTQ. Now he's saying that the new government will have to restart. What's the position now? Is it the same? I have signed the bill and laid it again before Parliament. I'm a man of my word. I said I would do it during my vetting. I have laid a private member's bill again before Parliament. We did that 4 weeks ago. So I'm waiting for the committee to invite and start its processes. And once again, I will push for the protection of the Ghanaian child's innocence. I have not changed my position. My position is still the same. LGBTQ is a gross aberration of the mind. The president promised that he'll repeal the LI on mining in forest reserves. And I'm confident he will. I trust President Mahama. He's amending it. Oh. Sorry? Is he not amending it? What's the position now? We will get it repealed. When? There's work in the process for that. The minister responsible for lands is working on it. Look, Galamsey is a crime against humanity, and we need to end it. But like I keep saying, you can't fix 8 years of mess in 8 weeks because the ministers have been at post barely about 8 weeks. But there's active work. I know that about 7 forest reserves have been reclaimed by a joint task force led from the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. And so, yes, we must fight Galamsey. And again, I repeat, irrespective of who it is that is doing the Galamsey, I don't care their political color. Clamp down on them, deal with them. Let us use maximum force to deal with it. Those who are doing illegal mining, again, let's be very clear. There's a difference between legal small-scale mining. Those who have their concessions and are mining, I don't have a problem with them. But those mining in forest reserves and in water bodies, it's illegal. Clamp down on them. So why are we amending instead of repealing? I believe that the right thing will be done. And we'll continue to call for the right thing to be done. I don't understand. The position that Murtala Mohammed, who manages, says they're amending, and you are saying repeal. I haven't averted my mind to the details of what the amendments are. But my point is simple. Forest reserves, water bodies, there should be no mining in there. That's my personal position. Okay, that's your personal position. We can't have a country where we are allowing people to mine in our water bodies or forest reserves. And so as far as I'm concerned, no legislation that creates room for people to mine in forest reserves or water bodies is acceptable to our people. Your positions at variance to the pursuance. I would have to check what Murtala is doing, but I do not believe. But you are an MP. I do not believe. Yes. And I'm saying to you, I do not believe that Murtala's ally or whatever he's bringing to Parliament is to still allow people mine in water bodies.
If that's the position, I will vote against it.
Really?
Yes.
Don't you think that the president that you are very close in contact with, I'm sure daily or hourly, should ideally, based on the powers as he has in the Constitution, should have placed some moratorium or something on mining? At least
there are several ways to deal with the issue. And like I said, he may not have placed a moratorium, but we've achieved successes recovering 7 forest reserves from illegal miners. Yes.
Sam George, let me leave you because you are fiber. If I continue, you will spend the whole day. Sam George, Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram Pram, also the Minister for Communications. And thank you for passing through the studios. I'll get used to the full name subsequently. I'm sure we'll have another time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a pleasure.
Now, let's also tell you that this Saturday, April 12 at 9:30 p.m., right here on TV3, make sure you get ready for the drama, the laughter, and revelations as PM Extra Season 2 reunion brings all the housemates back for an exclusive tell-all event. Now, from live after the show, achievements to relationships that blossomed or burned, the reunion promises answers to your biggest questions. The key question, do you want to know what's happening in the various ships like Martyrs, Dressy, Jeline, as well as many others? They will be answered. So witness firsthand how their stories unfold, and then also find out if the sparks are still flying or in between them, or if the flames have fizzled out so far. It will be an unforgettable night with PM Extra housemates from Season 3 as well, or Season 2 as well. And the relationships, the rivalries, and the reality all playing out. This reunion has it all. Make sure you catch it live on Saturday, the 12th of April, at 9:30 p.m. only on TV3. A number of people have been sending out messages. I have this one from Kafu Yado, who says that great interaction. And then also Kofi Kwating Ameni Kukru says that tell Sam George that well, I sent him a message and he should look through the phone. I'm sure he has many other messages as well. And then Harry Kwete says, well, you couldn't do birthdays today. I've been watching the interview. I wish my wife, Abigail, a blissful birthday. And that's Harry Nartey Akwete. Wishing you all the best. But let's do some birthdays before. Let's use it to crown. You wanted to say something?
Yes, I've just been updated. We've crossed 50,000 on the 1 million coders registration.
Oh, already? No more 7,000 plus?
I said 7,000. We've crossed 50,000.
For the entries?
For applications.
Okay.
Wow.
50,000 on the 1 million coders program, you say. But let's do some birthdays quickly before we wrap up. So Amin right here, Idi Amin of the IT department, from all of us here at Media General. Happy birthday to you. This is a great guy. Fiona, I hope that's the right pronunciation, Fiona. Cheers to more greatness. Mrs. Prisla Asamochum, you mark your birthday, husband and family. Engineer Samochum says happy birthday to you. Irene Leku, happy birthday to you as well. Is from Andy and the Razak Mensah, secretary of the PCG Penel Church. It's also your birthday as well. And we have all this Miss Blessing Yamiche, happy birthday to you. That'll be it for the show. Make sure you join us same time on Monday. Bye-bye. Check it out, me a double. Check it out, me check it, show my best.